welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. We're so super excited for you to be joining us yet again for another incredible and amazing human being who's going to be joining us today on the show. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello, Michelle, and happy to be here. Looking forward to chatting.
It's so wonderful to have you on the show today. And for those of you who don't know who Cheryl Alderman is, not only is she this incredible human being who I've had the privilege of knowing for quite a number of years now and of watching her grow and expand in terms of her influence and the size of her business, but she's also, as I was saying, this incredible human being through the whole time I've known her, who has actually helped quite a number of people and been a mentor and support to many small business people. Cheryl's businesses, and she now has two. One is in the coaching space, and that is called Be Ultimate, and the other one is in the social media space called Social4U. But before I kind of mess it up by giving maybe a wrong flavor, I'll let Cheryl talk about how did she come to be an executive coach and how did she come to be an entrepreneur with a couple of businesses and one of them in social media. I'm fascinated, Cheryl. Please share how you've been on this incredible journey with the viewers.
Absolutely, Michelle. So the first thing I'd like to say is that age is not a factor when it comes to going into business. I was 47 when I started my first business, and I was 52 when I started the second business. So for anyone out there who goes, oh, but I'm too old to change things, absolutely you are not. It's just a number, and if you want to do something different, you can do it at any age. So I was in the corporate space for many years, and I took some time out to have 3 children under 5 because I'm a bit crazy that way. And when I went back into corporate, I did what a lot of women do after maternity leave, and I undervalued what I was and who I was, and I went back into corporate at a lower level than I probably should have. And during that time, I realized very quickly I was spending a lot of time training my leaders and my managers how to lead and manage people. And I think after about 1.5 years, I just thought, this is crazy. You know, if this is what I'm good at, helping people lead, maybe that should be what I'm doing instead of, you know, just doing it accidentally off the side. So I did some investigating, found some really great coaching training, flew to Melbourne a few times and did that, and then started the first business in that space.
I really hear, and that journey is so similar for many people where there's some sort of life event, and having children is a pretty big life event where their career's going along and then something happens, whatever that may be, and for many people it's children. And then after that, coming back into the workforce, and you hit it so beautifully when you talked about it was your confidence. It wasn't necessarily your skills, but it's your confidence to position yourself back at that senior level. And then I love how beautifully you I don't know how many accidental coaches and things there are out there, but I love how you explained that it was actually a lot to do with you were training your leaders about how to lead, and you saw that that was an issue or a problem and then stepped in and started to learn how to do it as a career, and one that you've so successfully built now across that and social media. With being at the top end of the corporate space and now at the top end of the coaching and social media entrepreneur space, you would have a different kind of perspective on what success means, given, you know, 3 children, 2 businesses. What does success nowadays mean to you?
For me, myself, and I think success really is different for every individual. What it means and how it manifests is very different for everyone. To me, success is choices. So whether that's financial choices, so having enough money to choose what kind of environment you're living in or where you're living or whatever, whether it's time, choices of how much you work, how little you work, where you work, when you work, that sort of thing. Choices of what you do with the resources you have, how much of it you use for yourself and how much you share with others or to benefit others. Having those choices, having those options, to me, that's what success is. The more you're doing well, the more options you can create for yourself and for others around you. So, you know, different to the next person maybe, but that's the way I look at success, is and having two businesses that are my own businesses now, and having put the work in and built them up, I now have a lot of choices that I maybe didn't have 10, 15 years ago, because I've created that for myself and been able to do that.
I think that that's a wonderful couple of points that you've raised there. One about, you know, that you're at an older age when you actually started all this. So age isn't a defining factor about, what's that saying? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. So
Yes,
you
certainly can.
you definitely can. And also that lovely part about, well, because of the different ages you're at, you know, the technology is different now, and you're able to build businesses in ways that you maybe perhaps couldn't have, or the barriers to entry is really what I'm thinking about, are completely different now. Many of them have gone because technology can help you. But in terms of success, I really love how you're talking about choices and options, you know, that financial, time, resources, all of those different areas that mean that success to you now at this stage of life means it's about having the choices with your two businesses. Do I work today? Do I spend time with my family today? Things that perhaps as a paid employee in a senior corporate role, you may not have had as much flexibility or choice or options around because of the different types of pressures. So very wonderful that success is something that you actually have so much choice around with those options in your life. Many people watching and hearing these wonderful success stories will be going, well, how can I do that for myself? How can I create that kind of success or options, even if we used to use the word options for the moment? How can I create those types of options? You know, there would have been times, I'm sure, when you were thinking, how am I going to pay the rent, you know, the school fees, the this, the that, or whatever. And
absolutely.
So going through the self-doubt, the self-this, the self-that, the self-whatever, what sort of tips or suggestions do you have for how other people can create that mindset for success?
Well, one of the things that I think is really important is to get to know yourself really well, and understand what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. So, for example, I know I'm a very big picture person. I'm really not that person that's looking at the details and the admin and the systems and processes. That's not me. I'm out there, I'm talking, I'm teaching, I'm connecting with people, and that's what I'm good at. I'm good at creating a vision and moving towards that vision. I need people around me who can do those things that aren't naturally my things. So I think I don't like the word weaknesses. I think we all have things that we excel at, and we all have things that we don't excel at, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's something wrong with us. What that means is that that's the areas that either we decide to learn and develop ourselves, or we decide to find someone who is strong in that space and loves doing that stuff and leverage that, so that we can cover each other's areas, so to say, you know, gaps and spaces. I think that's really important. And I think as part of that, it's also really important to understand your strengths without the noise of external judgment. And I see this a lot, and I've got a great example, you know, with myself, but I see it with a lot of people as well, a lot of other people as well. Sometimes the thing that you're criticized for is actually your strength, not your weakness, if you like. So, for example, all of my school reports for my whole entire school life said Cheryl talks too much. Cheryl needs to talk less. Cheryl needs to learn to be quiet. I now get paid thousands of dollars to speak to rooms of 300 people. So talking is actually one of my strengths, my big strengths, and it's now a big, you know, income stream for my business.
I think there's two wonderful things there where you're talking about with the strengths. that, you know, sometimes what we may think of as, you know, being a weakness, paying too much attention to detail, this or that or whatever it might be, which could be called OCD or all these kinds of things, which actually can be that strength and that understanding that that's how you're hardwired in some ways, and looking for those natural ways that you are hardwired. And then the other wonderful point that you raised about the challenging or the weaker areas, looking for how to delegate those. So you were sharing about how you're the big vision and you're the big picture person, but you need people around you to help delegate those, you know, operational, transactional tasks to actually help you to keep being in the big picture space rather than being dragged into the operational admin side of things. And I think as a tip around getting to know yourself, or a suggestion, this is really, really wonderful, because whether you're looking to change careers or even just to be more successful in the career that you're currently doing, understanding what it is that you enjoy about your job and how that is part of your natural personality. So some people do want to sit quietly and just get on with work, and others need a whole team around them to get on with work. So understanding what works for you and what then is your weaker areas, and even negotiating with your leaders around, you know, I work better like this, so I work better at home because I have the quiet. So the company says I need to be here 3 days a week, but I'm less productive being in the office. Those sorts of, you know, by understanding who you are and how you work, then being able to negotiate with clients, with your managers, with whoever, how it will best work for everybody, that whole win-win situation, by knowing who you are.
I think on like following on from what you're saying, one of the other things I think is really important to you know, keep that success mindset and keep yourself moving forwards is ask the questions, have the conversations. Don't just hope someone's going to notice you and say, oh, we should give you a promotion, or someone's going to notice you and say, oh, this conference and training is coming up, so-and-so should go to that, that'll be great for them. Ask yourself, stand up, have those conversations, go to your leaders, go to your managers, ask them, what is your progression plan for me? Where do you see me in 3 years? You know, we're very good at saying to people, ask yourself, where do you want to be in 3 years' time in your career? Well, ask your leaders, where do you see me in 3 years in your career, in my career? And their answers will help you decide whether you're in the right place or not. Because if they don't have plans for you, if they don't see progression for you, then you need to take control and perhaps look as to where you need to move to find somewhere that is invested in you and your future, and it's not just all you doing all the work and you know, waiting for it to happen. Really important to have the conversations.
I think that you know, both Cheryl and I started our careers in corporate, and I think that this is a really important point, Cheryl, that you've hit the nail on. That it's about taking that taking those steps and not being passive in your career. And even in the last 10 years going in and working with corporates and as a consultant, one of the things I've noticed is that passivity, which I find quite sad, because people understanding technology's changed a lot. We're talking about, you know, whether it's ChatGPT or OpenAI or whatever it might be, the world is changing and rapidly advancing. And so taking control in whatever form that looks like of your career and of your growth and of your learning will become more and more important, and not being passive and waiting for HR or your boss to do your performance development plan, but working out. And that's a beautiful way of framing it, that you've said, you know, asking your manager where they see you in 3 years is a really wonderful way, because I would say, unfortunately, many of them might not have any idea, because they don't know for themselves. But that
so if nothing else, you will get them thinking about what they want to see from you, you know, and what's ahead for you. Because if they haven't already, you've now planted that suggestion. So they have to go away, they have to think about it, they have to come back to you with something, right?
They do, and to that wonderful point where you were talking about, you know, the training you did to become a coach, and so you travel to Melbourne, etc. So when you have the information, I think that this is a really key part of what we're talking about here, is having the information to make decisions. So once you have that information about, well, these are my strengths and these are areas that I can develop if I want to, or delegate if I want to. The other part of that then is, well, where do I see myself in 3 years and 5 years with all of this new technology that's coming out? You know, what do I need to learn, or do I need to learn anything? Because I'm always a people person, so it doesn't matter what the tech is, I'm going to be, you know, able to keep developing my skills in that people space, and that will be, you know, helping me get work. In fact, one of the things that I was thinking about over the last few days was that fact that, you know, HR managers is going to be a bit of a boom because of all the organisational redevelopment because of the technology. So if you were looking at, well, I'm a people person, then doing more skills and more training around HR could actually be a growth industry as well. So there's different ways, once you've identified what those strengths are, to keep building on them and looking at your career.
And you know, I said ask, but also take action. You know, if they suggest something, or they give you ideas, or they, you know, they don't, take action off the back of that. Don't just sit around for the next year going, oh, this sucks, they don't really care about me, they don't value me, they've got no plans for me. Don't just get happening. Don't get in that analysis paralysis, as they call it, or I like to call it also plantastics, you know, planning to do something and then planning for 2 years. You know, like, I'm an action person. I see what needs doing, and then I just do it. And I can tell you, even right at the beginning of my career, when I first started coaching, you know, I had probably coached 100 people before some of my cohort had even started coaching, because they were spending so much time on their website and their business cards and their you know, structures and their programs, that they weren't even actually doing the do, you know. So by the time they started, I already had a full book of clients and I was working almost full time, you know. Take action, do something, even if it's a tiny little weeny thing. And I often, when I'm talking to people who are looking to perhaps transition into a different role, the first thing I say to them is update your LinkedIn, update your CV, because that's an action. And whether they start looking for jobs then or in 3 months' time, they've done something. So they've actually internally created that momentum of, I am moving away from where I am and moving towards something else. So just that little exercise is getting them moving forwards, rather than just thinking about it, talking about it, researching, thinking about it, talking about it, researching, planning. Yeah. So actually taking some active step forward, even a teeny tiny one.
I think that that's such an important part, that taking action that you so beautifully described there, you know, even if it's a teeny tiny step. And, you know, it's interesting that there will be people that don't really have a LinkedIn profile that may see this through other social media channels. And it's one of those fascinating things where the more that we're going into this technology space, the more everybody needs some sort of personal brand about who they are and what they do. And what you do can change and evolve, and people would expect that to happen as you do different things over time. But I love how you're saying, you know, just take that first step, look at your LinkedIn profile, look at your CV. And one of the other things when working with people around that area is to have those conversations is one of the suggestions that we do. Talking to your friends and family and work colleagues about, well, what do you see my strengths as? What do you see my areas, you know, I might not be as good in? Because even that little bit of market research can actually be quite interesting in terms of feedback.
Absolutely. And often, you know, other people can see the gold, as I call it, more than we can. So one of the things I think as coaches, and I know that you would operate the same way, is that I can always see the gold in my clients. You know, we've all got these big chunks of shiny gold inside us that are our best parts of ourselves. But often especially if you're particularly good at something and it comes naturally to you, you just forget that that's a thing, because to you it isn't. You just naturally do that, and that's just how you are. So you don't always think of that as special, you know. So to me, for example, you know, a systems and process person, someone who does all that detail stuff, to me they're like superheroes. Seriously, they are my favorite people, because that to them, but to them that's just normal. That's just what they don't think that's special. But to someone who doesn't have that skill set, that's super special. So often asking your cohort and the people around you is actually a really good way to see the gold, because you might not notice it because it's something that's just intrinsically natural to you, and other people can see it because it's not natural to them. So.
I think that that's so true. You know, whether it's that you organise the best parties, you know, can be something that you can go, well, I just do it. You know, I've been organising parties since I was young, but then that may help you to go, well, actually, I really enjoy organising parties, so I could be an events manager, and then you could go train in that area, or you know, like you're talking about with the being process and detail oriented, you know, that might be, people could say, oh, you know, you're a little bit OCD, or you're a little bit fastidious about things have to happen in this, you know, kind of set way. So hearing what people say and you know, taking it to heart that they're saying it for your best intentions. So some of the things that might go, and what you were talking about earlier, they might say, oh, you know, you're always late because, you know, you're playing computer games or something. Hearing that and going, well, what is the gem or the gold in that? And the gold might be, well, I pay a lot of time and attention to the things that are important to me, and don't prioritise the things, perhaps, you know, like friends or whatever, that aren't as important to me. So how do I capitalize on this? How do I make money? And as we both know, the gaming industry is, you know, one where you can make quite a lot of money. So looking at those strengths and then understanding what motivates you, makes you happy, and what you want to do more of, I think is fabulous advice. And taking action, which is what we're talking about.
My favorite quote in the whole world is Thomas Edison one, which is, if we did all the things we were capable of, we would truly astound ourselves. So, you know, taking action and taking those steps is going to lead us somewhere, and we're all capable of so much that we don't realize we are, you know, because we've got those limitations or beliefs or self-doubts or you know, whatever. If you just start moving, you can still feel those, but they're not holding you back. So, you know, just do stuff, do something different, you know. I often say to clients, if they feel like they're in a bit of a rut, you know, especially if they're going into that corporate space, say, okay, drive a different way today. Walk a different way from the train station to the office. Anything, just change it up. Go to a different cafe for your coffee. Start changing things, because it'll switch on different things in your brain, and then different things will come your way. You're changing the energy, you're changing your routine. That's creating something different to what it was yesterday. So you might not know what that is, or it might where it's going to lead, but just start changing things, doing things maybe a little bit differently, talking to someone different, you know, and you know, talking to other people who, and particularly if you're looking at progressing in a particular occupation or industry, talk to people who are 10 years ahead of you. Talk to people who already are up at the top, and ask them, what do you wish you knew when you were at my stage of career? Or what was helpful to you that you wish you knew 10 years ago in this industry or in this business, or, you know, as a business owner, whatever it might be, because there's a lot of power in the experience of others. And it's important, again, to ask. You know, that word keeps coming up, but people don't think to ask. So just ask other people, take action, and things will start to change. Things will start to come in front of your space, land in your lap. You'll get a different phone call, or you'll bump into someone different, and funny things happen when you do that.
I love those magic that starts to happen, and people do think of it as being magic, but it's very much that once you start to take those small steps and put it out there that, you know, this is the direction I'm now going in, and this is the world that I want to create and the life I want to lead, then it is funny how things start to click. And it starts with driving to work a different way, all of those wonderful examples that you were sharing.
And probably, I think, probably the last thing I would say in that kind of mindset space is have compassion for yourself, particularly for your past self. So if things have gone wrong, or you haven't succeeded in things, or you know, you've had bad things happen around you or to you, have compassion for that. You're a person, you're a human, and if you haven't been performing, or you haven't been getting where you need to because this and this and this have happened to you, that's okay. You know, you're not a superhero. You're a real person. You're supposed to have emotions. You're supposed to have ups and downs. We're not supposed to be on all the time. You're not supposed to be succeeding all the time. You can feel and you can be in different spaces and different emotions, and have compassion for yourself and allow yourself the space to have that and to be that, so that when you come out of it, you've got more acceptance of yourself and more belief in yourself, because you're not banging yourself down for being a real person and having real stuff happen to you. It's really important. And I think also, you know, apart from having that compassion, you know, past and present, have conversations with your future self. One of the things I love from I think it's a television show, I think it's How I Met Your Mother, or one of those comedy sitcoms, they talk about future Marshall and future Barney and whatever. Talk to future Cheryl, talk to future Michelle, and say, what do you want to see in your life, and what do you think is important, and imagine and envision your future self and what that looks like, and that will help you work out the directions and the actions and the people you want to talk to and ask and so on. You know, it's amazing how many of us just get caught up in the day-to-day and don't even take a moment to think where we're going. You know, we're just going.
I think that's really wonderful points there around the having compassion, so much compassion for being human and having those very normal and natural emotions. And if there was one gift that I wish I could give to people, it's not to beat themselves up and not to be so hard on themselves. So I think that point that you raised there is really important, just to keep being kind and be compassionate with yourself. And then that final point around conversations with your future self, I think that, you know, it can be such a fun and crazy, it can feel crazy doing those exercises. But as Cheryl and I both know, because we see those miracles with the clients that we work with all the time, when you have those conversations, as awkward and funny and crazy as it might seem at the time, it's also part of that, creating that magic, creating the insights that you need for you as to the next small step to take. So it doesn't need to be, you know, do this or do that in a big sense. It's just those insights into that next small step and how to get there. And Cheryl, we're running out of time, unfortunately. I know you and I could talk for hours on these topics, but how can people best get hold of you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. Obviously, one of my businesses manages LinkedIn accounts for people in the corporate space and also business owners. So I'm very, very proactive on LinkedIn. So you can find me at Cheryl Alderman on LinkedIn, and I look like me because my photo is current. So you'll know it's me. And yeah, the businesses are both in there, and if people are interested in looking at the coaching or the social media stuff, both businesses are in there, so you can click through to them from my LinkedIn profile.
Fabulous. And if you were to give some advice to your younger self, what would that advice be?
Oh gosh, that's always a tricky one, isn't it? I think the first thing I'd say is you've got this. Although I probably already knew that in my younger self, because I kind of just do. But probably, I think the biggest lesson I've learned, and I've probably only learned this over the last 10 to 15 years, is that it's okay to ask for help. I think when you're I'm quite a strong, confident person, and I always have been. And I think sometimes there's a danger when you are that strong, confident individual that you just do it yourself. and you do everything yourself, and you rely on yourself, and you can depend on yourself, and you can trust yourself. So you almost get on this little one-way highway by yourself, and it's actually a really heavy way to do life and to do business. Mentors, I do a lot of mentoring now, and mentors are invaluable. So look for mentors. You know, if you need coaches, look for coaches. But if people offer to help you or give you insights or give you information, be really open to that. It's not it's so much easier to do life letting people, you know, do that for you than you know, trying to just do it on your own. I think it's super important, and that's probably the thing I'd like to send back.
And what a wonderful, wonderful, because Cheryl will get this, because what I like to say sometimes at this point is, tomorrow you will be talking to your younger self. So what a wonderful message to give yourself for tomorrow and the day after and the day after. But unfortunately, we've run out of time, and thank you so much, Cheryl, for sharing your pearls of wisdom, your real gold with the viewers today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My absolute pleasure, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
And to all the viewers out there, it's been yet another incredible episode where we've heard so many wonderful, wonderful suggestions and tips for how to create that mindset for success. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.